So I worked for a few medium to large sized dairies and a few small farms with a few beef cows. So I get around and see a lot of the land around here and have learned a few of the tricks to make all this stuff turn green and try to be weed free. So yeah, this is what you want. Nice green field. This one, neither of these, let's see if I can work the pointer. This one's working. So this is a place that I rent. This one's certified organic, and so no spray or nothing. And I'm able to keep the weeds out just by cutting it 3 to 4 times a year. If you get the thistle before there's seed and you cut it off, it's okay. But you gotta see that. If you don't do it, then the seeds blow and you get more. This is another field in the county. This has no cattle. It's a conventionally managed dairy farm forage field. It's in nice shape because this was only, less than a week ago. So there's no compaction problems here. I think they replanted this a couple years ago, so that's why it looks really good. The second and third year looks awesome in a lot of the fields, and you get 7, 8 years down the road, they start to, the life cycle of the grass doesn't always last forever. Ways to get the land productive. Well, reseeding, this is the simplest way. Aerating and harrowing, expose a little bit of dirt, and put some seed on, put some manure on or other type of fertilizer like green manure crops, seed it, and then the harrow will kind of bury the seed a little bit and you'll get some regrowth. You can't just seed right over the grass because the seed will sit there, dry up and die. It needs a little bit of soil contact. Let's see. This is a different sort of aerator here. You'll see these on like golf courses, a plug puller. What this does is allow water to drain out, and it allows air to get into the soil, and the air will stimulate the root growth. And it's been around a long time. I think this is the spiked version. They do the same thing. They put little holes in the ground, lets the roots get air, and lets the water go down in the rain. I do this on some of my fields in the fall, and for certain soil types, soil that has a little bit of clay in it, and it seals off. The clay, when it rains, it gets real sealed off, and the ground gets hard, and the roots kind of drown. You'll see the grass kind of turn a little purple, and it's not doing real good. It's drowning. So if you do this in the fall, and a pasture harrow will do a similar job too. It allows the drainage, and it'll look nice for the first few months of the winter. It does well with it. And this is replanting. Here's an example of actual manure and green manure. This was a cover, you can't hardly see it, a green manure crop of sorghum. What, I hit the wrong button. Back. They're too close together. So this is just to build the soil and add organic material. Some of the soil is, topsoil thickness varies in places. In some places it's not real thick, and so to build the soil, that's why you add manure and organic material. And if you have the time and your sacrifice area is all mudded up and it's just a mess what you do with it. So if you plant a crop in the late spring, like as soon as you pull the animals out of there, you could plant this sorghum. That's just one example. It grows about this tall. It's kind of stemmy. You could do a ryegrass because then you can pasture it. And if you work it into plant in the fall, you're building the soil with organic material. It helps. You don't always have access to manure. Some places it's too far and too costly to pay somebody to do it. So you can grow a plant that you then work back into the soil and helps build it. Next one. So this man here did a lot of his own work. I was out on this man's property a couple years ago. And the only thing that I did is disc it a whole bunch of times. I spent like 2-3 hours with a medium size, big compared to this. This is your homeowner type stuff. Very effective though. And then he took it after I disced it and broke it up and loosened it up. Then he added that's the seed, and then there's some fertilizer and I'm guessing there's a lime or a cow krill or something there too. And did this all himself. It's easy to do. It's a couple acres, a small tractor. The agronomy company will give you that thing as a loaner, and they'll bring this out to you, and they'll bring you the seed, and you can do it yourself. And you don't need a lot of big equipment if you're doing 3-4 acres. You can do it yourself. This is what it looked like when he was done. I didn't get to see this until today. This is awesome. This looks very, very good. And this was worked on kind of through the summer. You can see the leaves so that's fall. That's obviously, this has got to be like October-ish something because there's still a few leaves. So he worked on it in the summer, and you can plant your grass anytime in the summer, if you have water. But if you don't have water and you try to plant it like the middle of June, you're all done. You just wasted all that seed. And the soil's dry as a bone and fluffy. And so you can get it ready in the summer, and then when the rain comes back, usually end of August, something like that, first part of September, then you can plant and it'll have a good month to get established, and you'll get like this high. That way winter comes, it's not toast. You plant too late, it germinates not enough, and you got nothing. Well, this is just an example. Let's see, back up. To break the compaction of the soil, this is subsoil. This is that's about the depth that normally runs. That's probably 16 inches. Just loosening the ground to aid in getting the water to go away and getting some air in the soil. There's a lot of steps to do. This is a plow. What you do when you plow is you turn it over the soil. You don't need to plow as much. It's less common today. It's more of a tool to break compaction and then add the organic material to the lower depths of the soil. If your topsoil is shallow and you have manure or a green manure crop that you're turning under, you can build the soil for the future farther down. You're mixing it. The little video will show that if I can figure out how to do this. Picture doesn't always, you can see it in motion, it's a little better. It's turning it over. So you're putting the stuff on the top, and you can see the little chunks, that's the little chunks of the sorghum. Putting it down, you're bringing up more soil, more sand, more of the aggregates. So you're creating new soil for the future. It's costly, and with all the steps, you do have risk of erosion certain times of year. Like if it's too dry, you do it in the summer, you leave it, it's all powder, fluff, dry. Then the rain comes and you have this like floating mud flow. Of course, if you have flat ground, erosion is not so big a deal because it's flat. So I got to do things at the right time of year, and I've learned a lot of stuff by trial and error. You do it the wrong way once, you don't ever do that again, because that didn't work. So, most of you people here, do you have horses and beef cattle? Any large-scale farmers? So, this is medium-sized equipment. It's a little bit impractical when you have a couple acres. So there's a slide here. Let's see where it is. I think it's farther back. Maybe I'll make one. It shows some of the smaller implements that you can do on your own. Here we go. A lot of this stuff isn't very expensive, and you don't need a very big tractor. This will loosen up the soil. This will break your compaction, rip it a few times, disc it, just break up the chunks. Then you'll have it looking kind of like that. Then you have a seeder. But you don't need that. You can even have a little handheld spinner thing. It's no big deal. You just walk around. It ain't going to be perfect. You put enough on. And then some sort of way to pack it. If you leave it too loose, that seed dries out and doesn't grow. So you need a certain amount of compaction for the seed to soil contact to get it to grow. This is the right tool. What I have done before is just simply drive on, like a little pickup or little cart, just drive on it. One time, one set of tracks on it, and then it grows. It worked. It's kind of hokey, but it worked. You need some sort of way to just pack it a little bit. These things work well. But you can. A lot of this stuff you can actually find online for not terribly expensive, or you find a neighbor that has it and just borrow it. Say yes.
You said that the gentleman that did most of the work himself, somebody brought the equipment over to him?
He had a little tractor, I believe. This is from a couple years ago, so my memory's not perfect. But the little seeder, let's see if we back it up to that. The little seed slinger thing came from the agronomy company, either CHS or Ellen Boss. They can loan that to you. When you buy the seed and fertilizer from them, they'll loan it to you. At least most of the time. And sometimes, like the wrong time of year, they're super busy and they only have so many of them. Yeah, this place here. So this is him doing it himself. It gets pretty costly when you have a lot of this equipment. You know, you can't only put so much dollars into your project. I mean, you want this nice field. And if you do it yourself a little bit in the evenings, a few hours here and there, a little tractor, it can all be done. You know, we see pictures and we see the tractors in the field. Oh, that's big stuff. You know, it's very expensive, big stuff. So, but you can do it on a small scale. There's no reason you can't. This was 80 years ago. Farming was done on that scale. That's how everybody You know, a farm was 5 to 10 acres. You had a 30 horsepower tractor, and that's how the United States ate in those days. It still can be done today. So this works very well. You can rent. So a tractor like this, you can rent from the local implement dealers $200 for a weekend. Of course, doing a project like this is more, you're not going to do this in a weekend. You're going to do this a few hours here and there, like late spring, early summer, then plant it in the fall. You borrow it from somebody, or you could rent it a couple different weekends, or even buy them. I know they're not that expensive. They even sell packages with tractor, loader, mower, and a blade for low 20,000s and 0% interest. That's not a bad thing when you have all these toys. There's debt and payments. I want it, and I can justify having it. Is it cost effective to what you're doing?
The neighbor wants to borrow it.
Yes. Oh, yes. You have it, and people say, "Oh, look at that. Oh, can we borrow that?" But it works. I mean, that turned out really nice. The only thing I did for him was just the initial disking, just breaking it up back and forth. There was tree stumps out here in the roots because this was really mucked in. He had horses out here, and it was like, I think all winter, and there were stumps, so cleared some of the stumps out of the way and then just loosened the soil, and then did the amendments with the fertilizer, and lime is another big thing here too. We have a lot of the soil here has a low pH, and the grass don't like the low pH.
About 7 tons per acre.
Yeah, that's true. And about 3 tons. That's expensive though too. It's $70 a ton. So if you're doing 20 acres.
Does a truck come in?
Yeah, big dust truck. Yeah, that's how they do it on the commercial scale. It's a big, huge truck, and all it is ground up limestone. It's just white dust. It's totally just a element of the earth. They dig it out somewhere, and it raises the pH more neutral, and the grass likes it. So if you have a lot of bulrushes, those dark green little boogers, that's usually an indicator of too low a pH. So now, as far as managing those stupid things, you can mow them down. If you have a little bush hog mower or a lawn mower, you keep them mowed short, mow them short, mow them short. That does hurt them. There's an old fellow that I know, Ray Fan. I don't know if you remember Ray Fan. So he's very knowledgeable. I actually hay for him and know him fairly well. And he replanted a field at his place a couple years ago, and he ended up with a whole bunch of them bulrushes. And he said, I can fix that. So he gets on his little tractor, and I want to say 3 times through the summer, just mow it really low. And they were gone. By the fall, they were gone. And that's cheap. Yeah, he used to be on the weed board, I think, years ago.
Yes,
right?
he was our chair for 30 years and also chair of the state board.
Yeah, he's a
Knows
super
how to get
awesome
rid of
guy.
plants.
He managed the Wilder Ranch farm. You know where North Bellingham Golf Course is? He managed that for like 30 years, 1960s, 70s, into the 80s. And he's just recently retired, and he's always had cattle, and super nice fellow. I've known him for a long time.
Nicest guy.
But you learn a lot of things from people who've done it in the past, and he said all you gotta do is keep them cut down. So when I drive around the county, I see a lot of pastures with a lot of weeds, bulrush, and they don't take care of it. And the bulrush and blackberries, if you would at least mow your pasture once or twice a year, if you mow that bulrush, that stuff gets huge if you just let it go. It gets like 3 feet high, and it's robbing the nutrients out of the soil. The animals won't eat it. Just mow it down. Blackberries, if you mow them 2 to 3 times, they tend to stay down too. Tansy is the only one where I get out, when I'm in the hayfield, I get out and I yank it. So I'm mowing along. And it's a pain because you don't want to get off the tractor like 20 times in a day. But in poison hemlock too, get out, pluck it all up, pile it up, come get it later. That poison hemlock, it's amazing how big it gets. But most people don't really know about weeds. I mean, where are they going to hear about it? The news don't talk about it.
I do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Like the weed board does, but there's a lot of people that don't know there is such a thing as a weed board. They have no clue. You don't know that. And I have one hay customer that has a pasture. They have like 5 acres, and there is thousands of tansy ragwort along their fence lines. And I've told them so many times that you got to do something with that. Well, they don't eat it. And it's like the yellowest place you've ever seen. I'm just like shocked. That's bad stuff. And it just seeds out and blows, and luckily they have trees on 3 sides, so it's fairly contained. It doesn't really spread too bad past the tree and the tall grass, but in the open I have a lot of trouble with common tansy too. So I've been doing is when I have time, little pump sprayer, and you walk out there. In the fall works really good, like the blackberries too, just walk out there and I do the crossbow Roundup mix and it works, so you just have to keep going back. Just a chore. Nature is not helping you a lot of times. You're combating nature when you're trying to grow grass and do any kind of farm. Not to mention the geese and the ducks right now, they're doing their number on the grass. They're just gobbling it up. What else is in here? I chased a whole bunch of ducks today, so when I get home every day or when I'm around and I see them out there, I walk out there and chase them off. There's like 200 of them and they're making mud. They're eating the little stalks of the grass and gobbling it up. And they're also silting in the ground too, because it's like there's a little bit of standing water and they walk on it and it's just all sealing it off. Oh, it's terrible. That's just a picture of rototilling. There's a lot of ways to do this. There's expensive ways and there's less expensive ways. This is probably the simplest way. Just expose some dirt and put some seed on and then cover it up again. That doesn't get rid of your weeds though, but it helps. Yeah.
Do you have suggestions for the kind of pasture grass for certain kinds of soils?
Yeah, depends on your soil.
So it's not like we live out in near Birch Bay, so it's clay.
Yeah.
Clay type soil.
There's a new crossbreeded grass, Festoium they call it. It has the characteristics of ryegrass, so it's aggressive, it grows, it's somewhat drought resistant, but it's not as stemmy. When ryegrass gets really tall and headed out, it's just like wood. And it's not a good hay grass because you can't dry it very good.
I was gonna
Yep.
say that.
Yeah, ryegrass is a great silage grass. It's great for pasture, but it's not a hay grass. It has solid stem and it don't dry worth a hoot. There's cover crop grasses too, but if you let them go, cheaper, like a cereal rye is very cheap, but it's hard to manage.
We don't cut hay on our field, it's just for...
Just pasture.
It's just pasture.
Well, ryegrass is okay if you do the pasturing, right? Like rotating pasture, don't let it get too tall and they eat it off. It does really well with, even in wet conditions, it's not terrible.
And does it have a pretty long life cycle, so you don't have to redo it every 3 years?
Yeah, no, ryegrass sticks around a while.
So would that, like, for your overseeding idea? is
Yeah,
that
oh yeah, it
probably-
takes well. Ryegrass takes well. It doesn't need as much cover as like orchard grass is harder to plant. It's like the seed is more wimpy. It seems to die easier. And some of the grasses, they get too dry and they're just toast. I want to say orchard's one of them that if it dries out, no water, it's just done. So like really high ground and without water, don't plant the orchard. There's a late orchard too, but I've got some higher fields that there's no water and then orchard seed is expensive. It's like $4 a pound and you need 30 pounds an acre, so.
In overseeding, is that what, is that?
Oh, no, overseeding, you don't need as much pounds per acre.
What's your estimate on a good place to start?
Just overseed some ryegrass. And if you're
But like for how many pounds per acre?
20 pounds an acre, 30, ryegrass seed is a little more coarse, so you do need a little more pounds per acre, whereas orchard seed is small, so your pounds per acre. It's almost like number of seed per acre versus pounds, and because they're different size, they weigh different. Ryegrass, it's good feed, it's sweeter. There is a cereal rye. I sometimes will harvest a cover crop off of the field that say the potato grower is just going to let it go. It's real sugary and sweet, and cattle love the cereal ryegrass. Even if you taste it yourself, it's sweet. Same as like a winter wheat. So
you gotta be careful. It's more sweet.
Right.
that's true. There's some grasses like they don't want some of that because it's high energy. And they don't. Yeah, they. Right. That's
So
true.
rye
If you're
is not
doing-
great for horses, is that what you're saying? Great for cows and mills. Okay, so you choose to make for horses.
Yeah. They do. They just keep eating. And that's what you
Yeah, I
want
know, and
to
I've got one.
gain weight and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got those, I can kind of.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Right.
If you got questions, that's fine. Oh yes, drainage. That's the other. Yeah, where did that slide? Where, at the beginning or the end? There we go. Yeah, so the other problem with having your grass be healthy is it drowning out. So small little ditches in the, like you find your low point in the field where the water collects. What I've done was a small grading blade on the tractor, just make a little groove. This is of course bigger than a little groove, but just a little groove for that water to run off in the high rain times. And then it's not drowned out as bad, less ducks and stuff. It helps. then this, like the next year, it will grow with grass and you won't see it. Certain soils don't drain through the soil very good, so you need a little bit of slope and you just figure out where the low spot is and magnify it a little. Yeah, ditches. If you got ditches, maintain them. Ditches are wonderful. That's true. I know nowadays what works and what's okay. You just, I don't know. That's what this book is for. Wonderful book. It'll tell you about how to do drainage in different soil types, what soil types you have, and it's being it's from 30 or 40 years ago. It's very plain English, very straightforward. It's awesome. I was just looking at it the other day, and it's like, oh, it's so nice. You read it, it tells you all about it. It's like, oh, that's perfect. Yeah, that's the other side of things now. You got to be, what you do, there's a fear, like I have it too, a fear of, are you going to get in trouble for doing this? You should not, I think, get in trouble for making the land productive and healthy and animals that are healthy and growing food for people. I mean, that's awesome. And when it's done right, there is no pollution, there is no runoff. That's the other thing with the erosion. If it's super dry and it rains and the dirt goes, you know, I don't know. We live in different times now, I know. Oh, yes, pests. So geese and ducks. Right now the ducks are eating like crazy. So I borrowed this from a friend, coyote decoy, and it works. It keeps the geese away. So I put it out like 6 weeks ago. I was having 300 geese land, and they're just devouring the grass and they're making mud. It's just horrible. So I heard ask around, like, what do you do about this, right? I can't be out there shooting at them. I can't be chasing them all day. I need to find somebody with a dog. So I put a coyote decoy. When they fly over, they think there's a predator there and they won't land. So it's like, that's awesome, and it works. In this particular field, I've only seen them a couple times, and they're probably 500 feet away. They'll go in the next field, but they won't go in this one. And so, see, this is, there's geese there, but this decoy is actually like right over here. So that's pretty cheap, and it works. Trying to find people.
Around a little bit, so they.
Yeah, well, you actually need probably like 3 or 4 more. And then they'll think there's a whole herd of them out there and they just won't even land. They'll go somewhere else. But they do a lot of damage. I've had them like lay bare a couple acre area, just bare dirt. It doesn't kill the grass. It will come like in June or July, but that first cutting, there is none. It's just gone. And what do they leave behind? Big poop. And what happens when the rain and the poop, you know, where does the poopy water go? Into the ditch.
Yeah.
So,
there's concern sometimes when you start tilling the soil, you're actually increasing some of the microbial activity and you start to lose the nutritional capacity of your soil when you till. So have you ever done no seed?
yes,
Drill?
no-till works very well because it saves the moisture, it conserves moisture. So in the summer and in other climates, like places where we only have 10 inches of rain a year, that's awesome because every time you turn the dirt, the moisture is gone, right?
Yeah.
But it's so wet here, when you do multiple steps in the spring, that's what you want, is that moisture to go away. I don't think you hurt the microbes, or you should be helping them. I don't know a lot about that, but you do want worms. Worms are good. They also aerate the soil for you. So whenever you see on a rainy day, when you see the the crows and
Starlight.
seagulls, or starlings too, when a rainy day, the worms are coming up, like a really rainy day, and they're eating all the worms. So if you see them out there, you know you got lots of worms. Or you did, at least till the yeah, like the aerator is kind of simulates what the worms do, really. It makes little holes and stuff.
Slides. We have
Yeah,
a
that's-
photo in here of a no-till drill. So that
Is that one
drill,
right there?
that seed drill there actually cuts, it has discs or coulters in the front that cut a path,
A little slit.
a little slit, and then
Seed.
the hopper drops the seed and then the cultipacker. So, in theory, you're able to sow into grass. And we actually, at the Small Farm Expo, that's another event that the Conservation District hosts, just passed. And a gentleman who wrote a book called The Soil Revolution was there speaking about his research into no-till farming and how that he is promoting it as a way to regenerate soil much faster than natural processes even. And it's, not necessarily a very common practice west of the Cascades. It's more common in the larger scale agriculture east of the Cascades, but we're very interested in it as a conservation district and would like to work more with folks who are going to be doing that type. Some of us at the district are interested in it, some not. But it is a way to build soil, has been suggested. I also wanted to say a few words about drainage before we wrap it up. So the photo on the left-hand side is an existing field ditch with a drain tile coming into it, so that's
You
basically
can't hardly
what.
see the ditch,
what
it's
we're
on the
looking
bottom
for.
there.
But you
there's-
can see the elevation change.
Yeah.
And then, so overall, when it comes to field drainage, if it's existing drainage that has been there historically, then as a farmer, you have the ability to maintain it. But if there's no drainage currently, and if you're interested in putting new drainage in, that's a much more complex project. I would love for you to contact us, and we can provide technical assistance to help you move forward with that project. We also have a lot of technical assistance we can provide for maintaining existing drainage. So please let us know if you're interested, and we have a lot of folks in our office with that specialty. So I think it's really close to 2 o'clock, so we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much, Richie, really appreciate it. One more thing.
So the no-till, I have tried that, and it does work, but it depends on your soil compaction. If the soil's really hard, even when you put the slit and the seed in there, it doesn't really take off good. So a lot of the reasons for here to do the multiple tool method is to break the compaction and allow the roots, the soil is looser so the roots can grow. Now in dry climates, that's not an issue. In dry sandy loam, that's not an issue either. It doesn't really compact the same way other soils do. So the no-till is definitely a big deal in drier climates. They're doing it a lot, and it's efficient. It saves you money. You're not burning diesel and burning out equipment and all that. So they do it here, but not as much as in dry places. So that's all.
Thank you so much.